Hey, what's up? Hello, everyone. Welcome into Fantasy Filmball, the show where we turn movies into sports and sports into something we don't talk about here. My name is Matt.
My name is Dyl, and we are back for another episode with a very special guest going over the international feature category. Most of, if not all, the submissions come in by the time that you are watching this video. But Arnaud, welcome back. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's always a great day when I get to talk about international films and auteur films. And hopefully this video will, certainly give you a great look at the state of the international race this year, but also just inspire you to go out and see some of these movies that are going to be coming out in the next few months. Just as a quick reminder, the way this works for the Oscars is not like other award bodies where voters can just vote for the best foreign language films or international films. Here there is a very complicated voting process. The way it works is that the Oscar outsources their choices to other countries for them to select the films they want to represent in the Oscars that year. France, for example, will select one film to represent them in the international film race. That will be the film voters can vote for in the international film category. So right now we have 77 films submitted from various countries around the world. The Oscars, the Academy I should say, has the complete list. We do not have it yet. There's still a couple countries we do not know what was submitted, notably China, Mongolia, Algeria. I'm going to assume that, most of the big players have been submitted, and we'll go over which ones are dead in the water and which ones have the best chance. What do you guys think of this race right now?
After the other day, we have a whole big shakeup because I know I have been on Zone's side for winning this category, but I know I was pretty much alone on that, and most people, I know Matt included, had Anatomy of a Fall, so I'll hand it over to him with how this really shakes stuff up for him.
What we're riding on is, do we think that this race is entirely defined, but what's the strongest film in Best Picture? Because obviously that's the zone of interest, but at the same time, the zone of interest is an experimental film. It's not easy to like. It's a film that I think 10% of Academy voters are going to feel very passionate about, and everyone else is going to not like whatsoever. So I think this is actually a race this year. Despite the fact that it seems like it should be the zone of interest show, I really think we could see something else win this category, like The Taste of Things, which was the surprise over Anatomy of a Fall. Honestly, I think Taste of Things might be a better choice. There's a lot of really good picks here, especially some of the picks that people say are questionable. The Settlers over El Conde, I think, is an excellent choice. I've seen so many of these films, and I'm really enthusiastic about a lot of these films.
I'm glad that you have seen a lot of these films because right now, of the 77 films submitted, I've seen only 4. And we're at a point right now where it's too early in the year to have the opportunity to have seen a lot of these, but we're just like a month or two away, at least for me personally, to be seeing like a dozen more. It's unfortunate that I can't talk with that knowledge right now, but
I can help.
This is what we have.
I can help.
Yeah.
I've seen 20 of them.
Whoa, 20.
I'm at 0.
Oh my god. So I organized this list from S to F. I'm going to start from the bottom. So the F tier are films that still have enough of a high profile that I feel like I should mention them. And again, this has nothing to do with the quality of the film because there are good films here. There are even great films here. This is just about their Oscar prospects. F tier is dead in the water. So first you have Bad Living from Portugal.
Yeah.
2018 from India. Sweet Dreams from the Netherlands. Bye Bye Tiberius from Palestine. Pictures of Ghosts from Brazil. And
Matt really likes that one.
Rojek from Canada.
Yeah, that's a shit pick. That's a bad pick. Us Canadians can say that right now. What the hell were they thinking?
Rojek looks like a really great documentary. I've heard the director speak about it. I've not actually seen the full film, so I cannot speak on that. It looks much better than last year's pick, which was Eternal Spring. That was embarrassing. That being said, we had Red Rooms this year. We had The Nature of Love this year. We had Rice Boy Sleeps this year. So many potential picks that would even fill the cynical quotas that you might imagine. This is not the strategic way to go.
I think the F tier should be reserved not just for the films that have no shot, but it should be reserved for the things that are like baffling choices. Canada absolutely threw away their chances.
I'm not saying we would have gotten a nomination,
Probably a
But
short
we
list,
could have
though.
easily gotten onto the short list. Matt, you loved Pictures of Ghosts.
Maybe I think F tier's a little bit too far for it, but it's not getting nominated no matter what. It's not getting shortlisted. It's a bit of an experimental documentary. Not even an experimental documentary. It's a video diary. I hate seeing it in the F tier, but you're not wrong.
The only other film in the F tier I can speak to is Bye Bye Tiberius, which I thought was quite good.
I do think Sweet Dreams might be too low. I haven't heard bad things about that one.
I've heard great things about it, but I've heard it is very much on an art house wavelength. These kinds of films I tend to knock down unless they're like spectacularly good, like maybe one or two films in the D tier. So the D tier are films that are unlikely to make a mark, but you never know. First, I have Blaga's Lesson from Bulgaria. Then I have Slow from Lithuania.
Oh, lower.
The Missing from the Philippines. Autobiography from Indonesia. Songs of Earth from Norway. Thunder from Switzerland. Opponent from Sweden. Vera from Austria. Seven Blessings from Israel. Concrete Utopia from South Korea. And Do Not Expect Too Much from the End of the World from Romania.
So one thing I'm going to say about these tiers, Arnaud, is I think that you could swap most of these films around. Like, I had at least heard of the majority of films in the F tier, but a lot of the films in the D tier, I was like, damn, I've never heard of that, and I keep up with this category. That said, Concrete Utopia could be a D, could be a C. I think it's bouncing between those. It's a high D. Do not expect too much from the End of the World, like you were saying before. Art house films get a bump down, and as much as this is a great film and a very funny film, it is so goddamn art house. There's not a goddamn chance that a movie about a woman driving around impersonating Andrew Tate. Like, Dylan, that's what this movie is. It's like 2.5 hours. She's like driving a car, and every once in a while she'll get on the phone and have like a Snapchat filter on her face where she's Andrew Tate, and then she just says like insane shit, and then just goes about her day.
Yeah.
Are we selling you on this?
D tier, I don't know. There could be a portion of the Academy that's my movie. That's my man right there.
But, you know, there's always like one or two, like really kind of, I don't want to call it snobby, but like art house films that manage to sneak into the shortlist because the people who tend to like these films rally behind them. Last year we had Saint Omer, right? Which totally fits under that. But we're only getting like one or two of these per year, and this is not going to be one of them. This one is on the lesser accessible side of things. It's also nearly 3 hours long. So you have that going against it. And Concrete Utopia, it's giving me big Escape from Mogadishu vibes, which is like, oh, it's a big Korean blockbuster. Okay, it's a big Korean blockbuster that was submitted, and it's just doesn't have like enough of a voice or enough of a like a vision to you know stand out amongst the best films in the category.
Well, we should talk about the new system, which I was just informed about, because I had completely thought that the system was still based on, you know, you join the committee, you're assigned a group of films, you give those films a numerical score from 1 to 10, and then the films with the highest score overall make it through. Really, really did not benefit films that were a little bit polarizing, a little bit artsy. But apparently there's a new system in place in which you're allowed to watch any of these movies, which means people are going to be drawn to the names that they recognize and the countries that they recognize. You just apparently submit a top 10 or a top 15 list. And that's going to benefit things like Concrete Utopia. You know, if someone only watches 20 movies in the category, they're going to watch Concrete Utopia.
Last thing I'll ask you, Matt, is that you seem to say Slow was an F tier film.
Well, but I mean, a lot of the things that you had in D tier, I'd say are F tier. Like, I see no reason why Bye Bye Tiberius is F and Songs of Earth is D, for example. I feel like those are interchangeable. Like, there was a few others, like you mentioned a Bulgarian film that I had never heard of in my entire
I
goddamn
can speak
life.
to that film. I had not heard. See, I researched these films. I had not heard about these, but Blaga's Lesson. This is the plot of a Bulgarian woman who gets scammed into giving away money. And if you look at the trailer, it seems something that, like, again, in kind of a dark horse way, could be in the Academy's alley. You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe.
And that surprised me. So that's why I bumped it up to tier. But C, you will see a step up. So the C tier are films that could get shortlisted, in my view. So the first one is Benel and Adama for Senegal. Housekeeping for Beginners from North Macedonia. Goodbye, Julia. Why are you that surprised about?
That's another one where I'm like, that's just not on my radar at all.
From the director of You Were Never Alone, or that Nomi Rapace film that was submitted last year, and of an Age. You've never heard of this? Come on.
I
Come
haven't
on.
heard of Housekeeping for Beginners, but I've heard of like.
We were talking about it on the Discord like a lot of times over Venice.
I'm gonna be honest, it's not ringing a bell for me.
Wow. Okay. Well, you should probably okay, that one you should know of. I'm sorry. Goodbye, Julia from Sudan. Inshallah, a boy from Jordan.
That could be higher.
It could. I know you're high on it. Mother of All Lies from Morocco.
Fair.
Auguri from Belgium. Godland from Iceland.
Oh, that could be
The
higher
Breaking
too.
Ice from Singapore.
That could also be higher.
Shada from Australia.
Also could be
And
higher.
The Delinquents for Argentina.
Yeah, that's solid for that one. Good movie. Inshallah Boy has a very good upside to it in that it feels like an Asghar Farhadi movie. The downside on this one is with the new system of people watching whatever they want and then ranking them. This one might suffer because it's not from a known name. Jordan is not a very well-known cinema country. Really what this is riding on is the premise. But I think if enough people get eyes on it, it could very easily become a shortlisted film. The Breaking Ice being in C tier is interesting because watching that movie as my final film of TIFF, I was just immediately like, oh yeah, this feels like strong for a short list if it gets submitted.
It's at the top of the C tier, and it's just, again, it's the films that are, there are more films above it.
Why is
But
Godland
very
here?
close.
Because Godland, I feel like, should be.
I mean, it's a long film. It's a slow film. Janice might be even pushing something else. I'm pretty sure they have something else on here.
They got two.
Oh,
I
they
guess-
have About Dry Grasses, right?
And Totem.
And Totem. Totem they'll be pushing, right? I
Why
think
do you
Godland will
think-
be left by the wayside. Yeah?
Why do you think that they kept Godland instead of last year to this year? Because I know it screened at a lot of different festivals last year, but now it's coming out as the international submission for this year.
I believe Godland was not actually released in Iceland until early 2023 or something like that. And so actually it wouldn't have qualified for last year. So
Gotcha.
it was kind of seen as a snub last year. It was like, oh, why didn't they pick Godland? I'm glad it was submitted. It's a great film. The film here that is very likely to surprise us is Shada. Shada I've been
Yes.
hearing excellent things about. And right now I have it at like my number 16. I'm open to swapping it out for something else. Oh, I forgot to mention Smoke Sauna Sisterhood is bottom of the C tier.
Now, two that I'm noticing that you haven't included yet, and I assume that they're in your B tier, if not your A tier. I think these are C tier movies. You're gonna have to prove me wrong on this, but Totem is totally a C tier movie. I think it's just outside of that expected 15. People are gonna disagree with me on that. That's fair. That's fine. And additionally, you're gonna yell at me for this one. I think The Teacher's Lounge deserves to be in C tier, not B tier, or possibly A tier, where I think you might have it.
Absolutely not. What are you talking about?
I haven't heard amazing things about it. I've heard just like kind of mixed response to it. I'd also
I've
say
heard
maybe
amazing things about it.
I'd say maybe The Peasants deserves to be in C tier. I don't think that that's going to get shortlisted.
You're not going to be happy with my B tier, clearly. So from bottom to top, my B tier. So these are films that are, to me, getting shortlisted and have an outside chance. Bottom of the B tier is About Dry Grasses, which I think will be shortlisted.
I think it should be a little higher.
Jalen has not had a lot of luck with being shortlisted in the past, but I think that's mostly because in previous years the shortlist has only been comprised of 9 films. Now it is 15. I think most of his films were like just outside, and here I think he will kind of barely make the shortlist.
So
with this
you've
film.
just seen this film. I
Yes.
want to know if you agree with my assessment that I think that this is one of his most accessible films.
Your statement is a little strong. I do low-key agree. It's still a 3.25 hour long
Yes.
film, but it's a film that, has much more of a clear conflict that you follow throughout. Next, I have Io Capitano for
Cool.
Italy. Then I have The Monk and the Gun from Bhutan, followed by The Settlers from Chile. And then...
You've seen that too. Do you think that they made the right choice over El Conde?
Absolutely, it's the right
Yeah.
choice. El Conde is
It's-
a good film. The Settlers is the more definitive achievement. It's a strong statement, one I think that the Academy could kind of fall in line with and be like, oh, this is really interesting.
I do think it's a little low too. I think that should be in your 10 to 8 range as well.
It's a rather short film. I don't know if in the first hour it takes enough time to make an impression in that first hour.
I don't know if
It
I
works in the
agree.
last 30 minutes. I'm wondering if people will be like, oh, we're kind of moving away from the story now. You know what I mean? Next, I have The Peasants from Poland, which, if Green Border had been submitted, this is one of the biggest snubs. It would have been like number 2 or something like that. This is a step down. This is like they just lost a guaranteed nomination. I think it can sneak into an animation, but even that isn't certain?
No, I think it's number 8 or 9 in animation, and in international, I wouldn't even put it in the top 15.
Yo, if Loving Vincent could make it in, and then Sony Pictures Classics is behind this, right?
That was a really weak year for animation. This isn't. The bigger issue is that the animation was really new and novel in Loving Vincent. In this, the animation is a little bit less polished. There's times where it's like one coat of paint over a rotoscoped image. There's moments in this where it doesn't feel like it's animation at all, but not in a good way. Sometimes it's just like shockingly beautiful and you're like, holy shit, how did they do this? And other times the form just feels so off.
Next up, I have Totem for Mexico.
Lower.
This seems to me like, yes, I see your argument. Yes, this could be this year's Alcaraz, down to, you know, it being a Berlin premiere and all that. It's doing all the rounds at the right festivals. It's making the right impression on the right people. This to me is more in line with like a Saint-Omer. It's going to have the right support from the right people to put it into the shortlist.
Arnaud, you're going to love this movie, and you're going to tell me why I'm wrong about this. Everyone else is doing this, but... you know, I just think it left no impression on me whatsoever.
That's what I was going to chime into as well. I am very much outside of this whole race, but I've even heard that Totem is connecting with a lot of people.
What?
And so at least to me, that speaks to a little bit of Totem's possible chances to sneak in, whether that is a 5th slot or just be in like the top 10.
I guess I'm wrong.
This is another one of your like past lives, Oppenheimer, like, where's the good movie everybody's talking about?
Yeah, but no, this is more like Saint-Omer, like you were talking about. Saint-Omer, at least I got why, even though I didn't like it, I was like, I can see what people are talking about in this. Totem, I'm just like, it's just like a mediocre family drama. I don't get what people are clamoring about. I'm just like I don't care about these people. Like, oh, sorry you're dying. Fuck.
It's kind of hard to resonate with a film when you have no emotions. I get it. The next up on the list is Fallen Leaves from Finland. And then at the top of B tier, The Teacher's Lounge from Germany.
Ooh.
Which I think is a real dark horse for a nomination.
Looking at some major website pundits, both Next Best Picture and Variety have that in the top 3. So
Whoa,
they're
okay, that's a
very
bit
high.
high.
That's fucking insane.
Variety has it behind Perfect Days and Zone of Interest, and Next Best Picture has it behind Zone and Taste of Things.
Okay, that's too high. That's too much.
insane.
But like this really can't be making like direct comparisons with everything. But this feels to me like it could be this year's The Quiet Girl.
Maybe, and you were right about The Quiet Girl. You were saying all year long, oh, this could be something, and then, yeah, it actually was. I don't know what it is. There was zero enthusiasm about it until like 2 weeks ago when suddenly everyone was like, oh my god, this could happen.
What was the initial buzz when it premiered at Venice? Or was it at Venice?
It was Berlin.
Berlin, okay.
It's another
So in
reason
Berlin,
why.
it premiered at it premiered in like a very small program. Didn't get like a lot of, let's say, North American eyes on it. The buzz around it was very good. It's just that it wasn't like given a huge platform. And then just recently, when the fall festival circuit took place, it premiered at Telluride. It played at Toronto. It's making the rounds at a bunch of other places. More people have finally gotten the chance to see it. Sony Pictures Classics, if I'm not mistaken, is behind this one. So they've put it out in a bunch of festivals, and I've heard nothing but great things so far. And I forgot to mention, just below The Teacher's Lounge and Fallen Leaves, I would have Society of the Snow for Spain.
Ooh.
Okay.
Film Drunk's big pick during the draft. He's like, I don't know if I should pick this, but I think this could be something international. Right now I'm at the 5-6 slot. I don't know if I want Four Daughters or Mario Pool, one of those doc/international contenders. So I have them both in at the moment, but more realistically, only one gets in. But Matt, what do you think about this?
I think you're highly underrating this. This is Netflix's only horse in the race. I know you're about to say that Perfect Days is in because it's Neon's main contender, or that Totem has a great chance because it's Janice's main push. No. Netflix only has Society of the Snow. It is a broad appeal, blockbuster-esque movie that is seeming to connect hardcore with audiences. I think you are highly underrating this. This should be A tier, hands down for me.
If this gets nominated, this would feel kind of like a Kon-Tiki film, where it's like this kind of big budget international film that has survival elements. I know this is Netflix's only, or at least biggest, international contender at the moment. I just don't know if I can put it like that high. Yes, reactions out of festivals have been quite strong, at least from the audience side. Critics side, it's a little bit more solid but not exceptional. I just feel like as far as crowd pleasers, there are probably better options. Netflix couldn't get Bardo in, right? So they're not unbeatable either.
No, they still got all quieted. So I
Yeah,
mean,
but
it's
they
not
didn't
like
get
Bardo.
Bardo.
Yeah, but it's not like Bardo was their main push by the end in the category.
At this point, it was.
At this point, it was, but they don't have anything else this year.
They were able to pivot last year. This year, they can't.
Society of the Snow has better reactions than Bardo.
I don't know. There were a bunch of really well-regarded films last year that didn't get nominated too. Like we could go on like this.
I know, but the point of it is that they're going to toss money into this, and it has the audience reception to get in.
Let's see how the race moves in the coming months, but I'm not going to put all my pieces on the board for this film just yet. Moving on to the A tier and the S tier. So the A tier for me are films that I think are very likely for a nomination, and then of course as we near the top, I would say they're more and more certain. And then the S tier for me are films that not only are near certain for a nomination, but that have potential in other categories beyond that. That's why it is higher than A. It goes beyond the international category. At the bottom of my A tier, at my number 6 position, I have 20 Days in Mariupol for Ukraine. And the reason I have it in the A tier is simply because right now I think it is guaranteed to be nominated. And then I know, Matt, you say even win in documentary, and that already gives it visibility for a potential international nomination.
Dylan's going to see it soon. I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I'm like 3 weeks away.
Yeah, it's going to ruin
I don't know if
your
it's
day.
exciting.
But yeah, I think you have great reasoning there, Arnaud, for it. I think it could get in. It would be the most documentary-y documentary, because we've had Honeyland, we've had Flea, but those movies don't feel that much like a conventional documentary. Collective definitely does, but it's still less of like a traditional news style documentary. 20 Days in Mariupol is less of a film and more journalism. We haven't seen that type of documentary make it into international before. But I don't know if anything has been submitted like that.
I'll just say I have 4 daughters a little bit higher ahead. Do we really think that there can be 2 documentaries in international?
That
seems
been a big
to
thing
be
for me too.
It's a stretch. I think one definitely makes it. It's just which one?
They're so different though. Like Four Daughters is barely a documentary.
A good
And
point.
that's why I think it'll be so easy to fit it in international. Sure, you can submit it for documentary. It works, I guess. It's really a half and half, and people will have a much easier time watching it, I guess.
While it is very much a documentary, at the same time, it's so creative and unique that it kind of defies a traditional documentary. I could see it getting the nomination over 20 Days in Mariupol, and 20 Days in Mariupol still winning documentary feature.
Funny enough, I see both of those in the same day. They're back to back.
Next up, I have The Promised Land from Denmark. Then I have Four Daughters from Tunisia, followed by Perfect Days from Japan, and topping off A tier, La Passion de Dodin Buffon for France.
The Taste of Things. Worst title.
The Taste of Things.
It sounds like a Weinstein drama from the 1990s.
Hey, I mean, if it was that, maybe it would get it to the Best Picture.
Honestly, 20 years ago, you could have seen like Miramax campaign this to a Best Picture nomination.
Matt, thoughts on The Promised Land?
Promised Land, so that's your number 5 pick
5.
there? I think it's a great pick. It's accessible. Kind of action-adventure movie, kind of. It's got star power from Mads Mikkelsen. It's instantly recognizable. Now, it had some mixed reactions out of Venice, which I was a little bit surprised by after seeing the film. Maybe that'll hold it back, but I don't think it'll hold it back that much.
Well, I think that's just like the Venice crowd. It's not a film for the Venice crowd, and sure enough, it didn't win any jury awards in the same way that Argentina in 1985 didn't win any awards and wasn't all that well received at Venice, but then when it played elsewhere afterwards was a big crowd pleaser.
So we talk about how 2 documentary international features probably can't coexist in this category, but can 2 more action blockbuster heavy movies with Society of Snow and Promised Land coexist in this category, or would it be another
That's
where
smart.
you just have to have one?
I think if it comes down to that, I would say Society of the Snow takes out Promised Land.
I'm also thinking back to last year where at this point in time I had Holy Spider at my number 2. Am I overestimating Denmark right now? I don't know.
Now, the thing with Perfect Days, which I'm a little bit nervous about, everyone that I know that's seen it comes out of it saying, not much happens.
I have heard that as well, but if I learned one thing from last year is to trust the Cannes Mimi movie, because people would come out of the EO last year saying the same thing of like nothing really happens, you're just following a donkey around.
But
And
I
that
don't think
got
this
its
one
way
actually
in.
is memey. I honestly, Arnaud, I think you kind of tried to force the meme about the toilets. But I
No,
don't think the movie leans
the EO
on that.
meme came very, very easily, and then I
Yeah.
tried to. Here's the thing: is that like I wasn't trying to make Perfect Days a meme, but I was seeing a parallel between Perfect Days and EO, which is the kind of unexpected older auteur return to form with kind of like a funny premise. But beyond that, when you actually see the film, it might not be as like iconic or as big of a statement. To me, it felt like revolutionary. I felt like I'd never seen that kind of film before, whereas Perfect Days seems very similar to Patterson, for example. I think that this is going to be kind of like the light, feel-good film of pack of nominees. And,
Taste of things.
Neon is not guaranteed a slot or anything, but this is their top dog right now with Anatomy of a Fall not a player anymore. I immediately, when I heard that Anatomy was not submitted, I immediately put Perfect Days into my 5.
Typically, we do see 3 out of 5 of the nominees be European and 2 out of 5 being non-European. This is a year that does not have a very strong pool of non-European stuff. So if you think about what possibly is non-European that could get in, Perfect Days is one of the top dogs.
Right now in my top 5, I would have Perfect Days and Four Daughters being the 2 non-Europeans. And then I would have to reach down to, again, Totem, which I don't think is getting nominated, or The Monk and the Gun and The Settlers. Although The Settlers I could see maybe.
Would you consider Turkey to be European, or is that Asian in your mind? Because
I'm gonna say
it straddles between.
I mean, it's both, but the film takes place in Anatolia, which is the chunk of land in the Asian part of the country.
Do you think it's possible for the stat to break?
Oh, well, it broke last year. 4 out of 5 was European.
Oh, well then screw it.
Remember,
I'll
Decision to
stick
Leave
with
was
that.
not nominated.
So, Taste of Things, though, at number 2, I think that's right. And what
This
do you
is
think
a
about the
film-
possibility of it topping Zone of Interest?
I think it's very, very possible. I'm keeping it in A tier because right now there's not an avenue for the film to get nominated anywhere else. I think it could win. It really could. Whatever happens, yes, France should have taken Anatomy, but if The Taste of Things wins this category, we got to give them an apology. Because they would have, right now what they did is take an enormous risk. They know Anatomy is like the big contender right now. They're like, okay, but what if we get like 2 films in there? And that's kind of what they're trying, and it's going to be super risky. If they actually win that category with a film that isn't Anatomy, this is going to be a baller year for France.
It's one of my favorite films of the year. Hands down. I think this film is...
But you have not seen Anatomy yet.
I have not seen Anatomy yet. But in my mind, I cannot imagine Anatomy being a better pick than this. You know what I think? This year is going to be a stress test of this category. We will see if voters truly pick their favorite film or if they're just voting whatever's in Best Picture. Because, like I said before, the Zone of Interest, which is going to be your S tier pick, I already know.
I guess I'll just say it right now. Yeah. My S tier category comprises of 2 films, The Zone of Interest and Anatomy of a Fall at the very... Oh, wait, never mind. That would have been like the best example of like an SS tier. Or I guess Zone of Interest, given the subject matter, is SS too. I'm just kidding. No, it's a low S tier. Even if this doesn't get into picture, I think this gets into director. Or it has like BAFTA potential in other categories. And that's why it's like bottom, very low S tier.
The thing with Zone of Interest is that it's the type of film that gets in on the passion of a small group of people. It is so not widely accessible. This is the type of movie that I truly think 90% of people that watch this movie are going to fucking hate it. The group of people that watch it and love it are going to love it so much that they're going to have the power to get it through to other categories. In the same way that, like, Drive My Car, that happened a few years ago. But the difference with Drive My Car and Zone of Interest is that Zone of Interest has no emotions in it. It has no story. It's a thought exercise. It is a fascinating thematic film, but it has nothing else to hold on to. There's nothing about this film that feels like a normal movie. And so why I say this is a stress test for the category is we are going to see if people are actually watching the movies. Because if people were actually watching the movies, Zone of Interest would not win. Because the majority of people in the Academy are not going to like the Zone of Interest. If Taste of Things loses, it just means people weren't actually, they were just voting, oh, well, Zone of Interest in Best Picture.
I kind of hope that it stays the way you describe it, because this would be a very interesting exercise in that we've never had an international film lose the international film category when it was nominated in Best Picture. But what if this year, with a film so particular as The Zone of Interest, that this actually happens and you actually have a film like The Taste of Things taking that category, and the respect towards Zone of Interest only doesn't go beyond nominations?
I think the big tell will be, does Zone pick up director? Does it pick up a tech? If it's just picture and international or just international, then I think that's where Taste of Things can come in. But I think if Zone gets director, it's winning by default.
So you think that if Zone gets nominated for only international director and picture, it is guaranteed to win international?
I think so, with the current makeup of how they vote and how it's all set up place,
I think
Because
you're
I would
going to
argue
change your mind
that-
on that when you see the movie.
I would argue that Zone's safest category is director, actually. And so I think that
Other than international,
gets-
it's safe in international.
No, you're
I
right,
just think
international
if it finds its way into director, that means people will have to watch it. And then that point, then people will then vote for it, unless it is truly just the worst thing in the world. But still, I still think there's people who are like, well, it's in director. That means people think it's very well done. And even if they may not like it, they may be like, well, I appreciate it. And that's enough to give it the win in the category.
Your reasoning is sound. All Quiet last year, for example, I know it got like a million other nominations, but like obviously everybody saw it. Therefore, it wins international because it's the only other film in that category to be nominated elsewhere. But here, maybe this is not so good for Zone, and we're going to see a Power of the Dog-esque backlash, but like times 10, where it's like more people see it and are like, wait, this is like garbage.
I know it's not the easiest apples to apples comparison here, but like when we had Worst Person in the World versus Drive My Car, I know Drive My Car was a lot more, people would say, accessible, but I would still say there's a lot of people who see Drive My Car like, this shit's awful, like nothing happens, it's boring. And that same comp has been given to Zone of Interest, while Worst Person in the World was like, oh, it's fun, it's engaging, it's easy to watch, to recommend, and that's kind of what Taste of Things sounds like. But still, Drive My Car was in picture, screenplay, director, was enough to power it through, and I feel like Zone could be kind of like the same sort of thing, maybe without the screenplay, but still director, picture.
I just think that The Zone of Interest is just like something else. Well, there you have it. There you have my tier list. I hope this ages better than the last one. Last time I said, 3 to 4 of these of the top 5 here are right. I wound up getting 2. So
Wasn't your short list like perfect though? No, I think you missed one. I think you had Alcaraz over one.
I missed 2. I had Last Film Show in the D tier. And I had Blue Kaftan at number 16, just outside, but I actually wound up getting nominated.
We had some disagreements, but this is an
fun
exciting
comes.
race. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Arnaud. This has been really great to hear from you. I love doing these, and I hope that our audience out there learned something from this. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, my name is Matt.
My name is Dyl, and this is Fantasy Filmball.